Does everything have a bright side to it? Of course. Doesn't always outweigh the negatives, but everything has a bright side to it. This makes happiness a choice. And here we say that the discipline of being happy is the ultimate discipline. With that said, welcome to the Ultimate Discipline Podcast, where we meet with people who are practitioners of this exact discipline, and we hear their cool stories of cultivating happiness through challenges in their life. I am your host, Sean Greenspan. Let's get to it.
Heath, what's up, man?
Not much, man. Just living a good life. How are you doing?
I'm good. I believe you're living a good life, but we haven't spoken in a while. Tell me something I don't know that's going on in your life.
Yeah. So I recently gotten involved with Thomas Jefferson's palliative care team. And I guess if you're not really aware of what palliative care is, it's the transition of care away from, I guess, fighting or trying to mitigate disease progression into accepting terminal illness as the end of life and trying to then mitigate pain and suffering as much as possible as a person passes on to whatever it is that they believe is next for them.
Yeah, that's something that was part of the program you're in as a doctorate, or something you're kind of choosing to go down.
No, it's not required in the MD. It's my own passion, if you will. I'm frustrated with the state of how we view death and how we try to escape death, if you will, for as long as possible, instead of enjoying life while we have it and then bringing on that next chapter when it's time.
For those that don't know, so I grew up with Heath. I always say some of your best friends, Heath, are people that you've been able to do a lot with, and a lot of variety with, I should say. And I mean, we played high school sports together. We went to college together. We've done things like, went out partying, went out, having deep discussions. So for everyone out there, I view Heath as absolute top people in my life. We're both running and gunning, so there's a good chance for us to sit down and catch up. And and Heath biked across the entire country. I'm sure we'll get into that at some point. But what that reminds me of, Heath, is when we were in Paris and we were in a deep 12-hour discussion on life. Definitely not a debate. I specifically remember you talking about this because I brought up that, death is like a very real fear for me, right? It is it's not the soul, but it's one of the drivers behind my health and fitness journey, right? Is trying to just stay healthy and well as long as possible. But I remember you talked about you had this visual for me that you don't really know what death is like. You have your assumptions, your guesses, and if you don't view it as this good thing, we're just zombieing and drifting towards this negative thing, and every day theoretically is getting a little worse, if that's our biggest fear. Did I kind of remember that right?
Yeah, I think you remember that correctly, because it's almost like just a ticking time bomb if you're just anticipating death as this just completely dark, negative space that we all reach one day. And the beautiful news is, with your health and fitness journey, that you can most likely expect a long and fruitful life with just modern medicine, modern nutrition, and everything that we're understanding about the human body. So at the very least, there's a lot of time to really decide what you want to believe about death. But it's just like you, nor I, nor anyone truly knows what's going to happen tomorrow. But people like yourself or myself, we don't project all this negativity onto tomorrow. So I view death similarly, where it's not going to happen tomorrow, knock on wood, but there's no need to project negativity onto an event that we really just don't know what's going to happen.
You're the perfect person to have on this podcast. The intro to this podcast, Heath, the intro to all the episodes, the title is Happiness Life's Ultimate Discipline. The name came basically from a combo of two things: ultra running, me getting into ultra running, and reading a book by Dan Millman called The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, where he talks about the discipline of happiness. And I mean, I look at things, everything has like a bright side to it, right? And you just can choose or not choose to be happy about it, right? Now, we're not getting into like, we can, but you know, I don't want to really get into like the fact that like we're not like disregarding the negatives, right? Or turning a blind eye to them. You know, I think a good example is like this pandemic. Tons of people died. Tons of people's lives got changed for the worse. It's very fair to say overall the pandemic was a negative thing for the world. I'm not saying it is. I'm saying that's a fair statement. But what's also a fair statement is opportunity came out of it. I can't tell you about how many people I've heard saying that this is like, it's been one of the greatest times in their life, and maybe they're privileged people, but again, I'm not saying one overweighs the other. I'm just saying like, you know, we're just choose to focus on like the positive, and anything that's like just plain negative, how can we just learn from it versus dwell on it. So that's why I love what you say. It's like, we don't know, so unless you could tell the future, choose happiness.
Yeah, exactly. And if you feel negative about something, let yourself sit in that emotion for a little bit, and then slowly be disciplined, as you're kind of referring to, and pull yourself up and refocus on maybe some of the lighter aspects of whatever it is you're experiencing. And I think you can do this with death. Like you say that one of your greatest fears is death, which is more than fair. But what are possible like light aspects to it? Or like, even if you're just to be creative and imagine what could lighter aspects be to it. If you picture yourself as a 125-year-old man, having had the fullest life that you spent living to the max, as you do, what could passing on to whatever you believe is next usher in that you don't even really know? You know, what could it possibly be?
And then, that is a fun exercise.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna jot it down.
It gives you goosebumps. It's like I imagine myself 125. I did the whole family thing, and now I'll probably have like some great grandkids running around. I got to explore the world, got to do everything I wanted within my career. Now, what is it that passing on provides to both me and to others that I don't know, that keeps this circular nature of the world like moving?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's interesting because you said it gives you goosebumps. A guy, Tony Bonici, I had on here. He's kind of like a life coach that I want to start working with when I can. He talks about, so a lot of people talk about like the power of manifestation, right? And spoken word and the words you think, I think are a huge aspect of it. But people talk about like that. I've looked into this a little, and it's actually a secondary law based on the primary law of vibrations. And, you know, vibrations come from feeling and emotions. And like the fact that you said gets you goosebumps, like you got past like the thought aspect of it and you're starting to feel it. Like the goosebumps come from like maybe it's heaven, right? Like maybe it's literally heaven. Maybe it's like you're free from like all your problems. You've passed because you've done what you've needed to do per se as a physical person. Now it's like this, you know, nirvana that maybe we can't even describe, but like you can feel. And it's funny because it's a fun exercise, of course, but also like, again, I believe in manifestation. So maybe like the more you think about it, the more that's going to be your outcome.
Yeah.
You know,
I believe it. I'm with you.
I saw your little smile.
Yeah.
Let me ask, how does your view on death, if you will, kind of like impact maybe like day-to-day actions? Or doesn't have to be like day-to-day, it could be moment-to-moment thoughts. It could be, you know, I don't know, like
It's a good question. It's a good question. I think so. To go back to what I feel happens when you die, I feel that we spend our lives in this economy of energy, both absorption and passing along. So even if it's not as effective, maybe it is, but for me personally, if it's not as effective as talking to you through the Zoom meeting, as if we were actually sitting next to each other in Paris, having our 12-hour discussion on whatever, we are exchanging energy here, if you will. And you do that your whole life. When you're young, you do a little bit more absorbing than you do giving while you're growing. And then you, at some point along the way, transition into being a giver of energy, more so than an absorber. And I think you do that through life until eventually that end point when you don't have enough to give to sustain your own life and you pass. And then that's when the last bit of you, and some people may refer to it as a soul, some people would have other terminology for it, but is released from whatever it is your physical body is, and is now available for recycling for other entities to use. So when I think about the day-to-day and how that impacts the day-to-day, I try to absorb as much energy as possible, use my body to metabolize it into positive energy, and then release it, give it back in my day-to-day to people that might need it, or store it for myself for a rainy day, when it might be more difficult to find those metabolic processes to create it anew. And I hope to do that my whole life, so that when I pass eventually, what is released is just like raw, hardcore, positive energy to be utilized by whatever is around me in that moment, whether it be my family, whether it be friends, whether it be just a random tree to my left, whatever it might be. That I see the world as a closed system of energy, motion, or movement.
I love the science background, and the talking about like the metabolism in there. To pull it a little more, I guess, out of the hardcore science into kind of some of the softer pseudo sciences. We talked about energy, and I don't want to say pseudoscience. I just call them softer sciences. I honestly have a little bit of imposter syndrome. There's a side note, because I thank you. I feel so. I have this like chapter of a book I'm writing called practitioner versus student. Here's a good example: student, practitioner. And not to say that I'm not a student in some things and you're not a practitioner, but like when it comes to like psychology, like the way like I like to test it was like this morning I just did like a 14-mile run up a mountain with like no food, no water, fasted. And there were points that I got like kind of queasy. And was I mean it was like 6,000 feet of climbing. It was fucking intense. And I was just trying to stay present and enjoy it because it was a choice of freedom. And like that's the way I like to learn about it. And the reason I say imposter syndrome is I'm starting to think that I want to find like a science discipline to dive into. But that's kind of what I mean when I say softer science, is more like based on theory than data. But I guess my question was another quote that I remember from you that, dude, some of your quotes stick in my soul as life lessons, man. I hope you appreciate that. I know you do.
I do deeply.
Yeah. You were talking to me about people like around you. And this was when I visited you in Denmark. And I was like, don't you like miss some of the people from home? And you're like, I look at interactions as energy transfers. And that's what they are. And you're like, Sean, we communicate because naturally I feel more energy when I talk to you, which thank you. Cause that was one of the best compliments I've got. And you're like, you're not like, should I talk to Sean? It's like a natural thing that you're just like, feel like I leave conversations with more energy. So like you build a habit of doing that. And you were trying to become like aware of, people that like drain your energy or don't give it back. And, if you encounter them, of course, help them out. But like, you just can't have people like that in your life because then you'll have nothing for yourself. Right. Because you need to be well balanced for yourself.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that touches on, I see that we hit this topic over and over again throughout life. Then is what I'm recalling next. We've discussed this in different
Both of
forms,
these.
different places, and yeah, it's interesting how we always find ourselves back here in our specific loop. I'm trying to figure out what it is that we are trying, like, what is the take home point here then of why do we keep discussing this? What is there?
If we know it.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'll tell you where I come from, because my dad once asked me a question and he wasn't being serious. He was more like just trying to get me to think. And he said, like, Sean, you're in pretty good shape. Why do you keep working out? Right. And I don't I think his point was what do you get out of it? And if you don't if you're in shape, that's great. If you stop working out and start eating like shit, you're no longer in shape. Before you mentioned that, it does take a discipline. Like, if you're scared about death, to feel those feelings and then maybe play a game with yourself of how you can envision it in a positive way. And I think it's as a way to further our understanding and reinforce our discipline, because I don't know, I've done a lot of trail runs last few years, and if you don't think my mind went down some dark paths, I literally remember looking at my phone thinking I was going to quit at 38 minutes in.
Yeah.
I think it's just that it's just more practice, I guess. I don't know. How do you think about it?
I think practice is one aspect. Another aspect is like a gut check. If you spend too much time in your own mind and you don't bounce ideas off of other people, especially people that you enjoy and find synergistic energy with, then it leaves you the potential to create these ideas that might be isolating, these ideas that might be a little bit too detached from a shared reality, because there's most likely not one objective reality. There's probably just not, but there's shared realities that it's rewarding to have a shared reality with someone that you hold to a high esteem, as I do to you. So we discuss these things. They're probably the ideas that we find to be the most quote unquote controversial, or maybe not held amongst the normal population of people, but we share them as philosophies, and that's why we discuss them.
Could be
a bit validating in a sense.
Yeah, almost like craving for. It could also be I'm trying to something that I'm trying to focus on this year is, while remaining positive, looking at myself a little more critically, because I just realized the thing I brought up was a positive, right? So maybe it's biased. It could also be almost trying to hide an insecurity around something, right? I mean, that absolutely could be, like I said, having imposter syndrome, or being scared of death. It could just be ways to justify something. Maybe not those two things, but
it could
something
be
else. Who knows?
Let's hone in on the imposter syndrome real quick. It's you I don't think you're fluffing anything here, right? You're not using positivity to mask your insecurity. Clearly, when you're willing to admit that you have imposter syndrome, that's a very grounded take. And then you briefly touched on having an action plan, almost wanting to sink into a scientific discipline in hopes to combat the imposter syndrome. So
yeah,
that is what we're trying to touch on here. There's a positive aspect of a realistic and borderline, could be viewed as negative feeling that you have, instead of just trying to squash it or just completely cover or mask it with hyper positivity. You're acknowledging it, and then creating a positive, actionable plan in hopes to squash it naturally. And so who knows if that will work or not. You might find yourself deeper in imposter syndrome the more you go in, because I think that's what happens often. I'm a student still. I'm also a practitioner, but I'm a student. I'm only allowed to practice to a certain legality as a medical student before I would be liable for various malpractice suits. And
Yeah.
so it requires patience and continuing to be a student, which is only further, in my experience, sheds or opens up this imposter syndrome as you go deeper into the chaos that is medical science. There's so much information flying about everywhere that
Yeah.
sometimes you got to go deeper into this negative feeling before you, in hopes to find that positive area. But I carry with me a positive outlook of what it potentially could be. So
Mhm. And I appreciate you sharing that. And I think that's like impressive to be able to do that. Like, you know, it's almost like think about like an easy version of it. It's like a workout. Like, the outcomes, right? From a run, you're going to be healthier, your heart's going to be better, your muscles are going to be stronger, ligaments going to be better, you're going to be in better attitude, endorphins are flowing, all this stuff. Um, and you need to keep that in mind while running, like while doing the thing that could not be fun. So, and then I think the other aspect is trying to make it fun, right? Just like soak in the experience, right? It's like, it was like the run today was just, I mean, the views were towering. So that was awesome. Little switch of gears, man.
Mhm.
Biking across the country. I still don't even feel like we've had, I don't think there'll ever be a time I feel like we've talked about this enough, because you had 75 full days, 75 days, right?
It ended up probably being like 60 something days of riding and then like a week or 2 weeks of rest, squashed within 77 days.
Nice. Awesome. I mean, that's like a lot of time, but tell me a little bit about like what made you want to do it, both from the impact side, because I know there was like a charity side to it, but then also there were a lot of other ways you could have served that mission.
Right.
That didn't take 77 days or bike across the country. So I would like to hear a little bit about the charity side, but also like the decision to bike from Washington to Maryland.
Yeah. It really just came down to wanting to see my both favorite and the most mysterious parts of America on the ground. And so I think if you're talking about on the ground, the car doesn't cut it because you're just driving through. It's a beautiful way to see America, but it's a little bit too fast. So then you have biking and running, and maybe someone like yourself who loves these ultra marathons would enjoy the idea of running across America one day. Maybe you add up the bucket list, but I don't really consider myself a runner at this stage in life. So cycling was the no-brainer. I figured it would leave me pretty raw and exposed to the elements, both like human and non-human aspects of America. So that's kind of where it came from, is just wanting to really dive into what is happening in the States, because it was on the tail end of just coming back from Denmark. And I don't know if anyone who does any kind of digging in any kind of media sees immense amount of negativity about what's happening in the States. And this is not to say that we're not facing serious challenges systemically in America, as we most definitely are. But I think that there's also an exorbitant amount of beauty happening in this country that if
Hell
you
yeah.
expose yourself to it, you'll see it. So that was the hope.
Dude, I want to hit on that for a quick minute. I don't really, keep up with like day-to-day news. That's part of my low information diet. And I hear from people that consume a lot of news and don't travel a ton, get out a ton, tell me how the world's in a shit spot and the country's in a shit spot. And I'm like, I don't know, like, for those that don't know, I kind of live out of a car. Right now I'm living in Italy and Europe for the summer, but most of the time, bouncing around, driving, running, biking through the country. And like everywhere I go, people are nice as can be, like just top to bottom.
Yeah, it's absolutely wild how good people can be out there. And it just, again, this is not a new point at all, but we really do just in the media focus on these 0.1% aspects of society, maybe 0.01% aspects of society that are quite tragic or quite dark. And those pieces are there. It's not like it's being made up, but it's not the majority. And so if you're in an information heavy diet and it's not based on your own experiences, but based on what news stories are being fed to you, then you're most likely going to have this view. And I can see how it'd be like anxiety riddling or depressive or anything like that.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, big time. I don't know how it couldn't be. Give me a story from the ride.
All right. Well, my favorite story is one day in West Virginia in which everything that could have gone wrong.
Little fire drill.
Yeah, I'm thinking that they're just testing it or something. Interesting.
That was too short. They put it out right away.
I thought that was on your end. One day in West Virginia, everything could have went wrong, but everything that could have gone right immediately after went right. So it was just this weird, almost like a ping pong phenomena of just like getting hit to this dark area where I was just in the middle of nowhere and everything was either broken or I was like out of water and getting my ass saved by some lovely West Virginian stranger. So I woke up at 4 a.m. this day to try to hit a 200-mile day. And I set off, and the first 100 miles goes pretty easily, but somewhere along the way, I lost, I think, all of my water. I lost 2 water bottles, and I finished my 1 liter like Camelback that I had on my back.
How many miles were you doing on a normal day?
It ranged from average is probably about 80 miles. Average.
Okay, so and that's like biking mainly all day. So
yeah. But like give myself like really long, adequate, like nice breaks. So this day was just like minimizing breaks as much as possible, drinking, eating, like on the move.
yeah,
but it's like it's at this point it's probably like noon, 1 o'clock, peak heat in the summer. So it's like a 96-degree day in West Virginia, and I'm out of water and I'm starting to get some serious hot flashes. Let's just hope that's another test. Yeah. Getting some serious hot flashes and I don't know what to do. So I just hop off the bike and start walking. So if I continue to output what I would have passed out. And I get to the point where I can't even walk anymore. So I just sit on the side of the road, just like kind of dejected and not really knowing what to do. And it's the middle of Appalachia. So there's nothing around, to be honest with you. I'm on like a state highway. I hadn't seen it for a solid 2, 3, 4 hours. And all of a sudden this guy pulls up in his white pickup truck and he looks at me and he's just like, almost as if we had known each other and he had been like following me and like being a caretaker. He's like, what's up, bud? Like, it looks like you need some water. Like, it's a hot day. You gotta be more careful out here. And I'm just in awe. I had no words. I couldn't say anything to him. I didn't know what to do. I just looked at him and was like, yeah, like I need some water right now. I'm in a really rough place. He just kind of throws 2 ice cold waters my way and just drives off. Just drives off like my fucking guardian angel. And I'm just sitting there not knowing what to do with whatever just happened. Chug that water. Don't think about it too much and just set point for the next town over to re-up on supply. So there's about 20 miles more at that point. And I made it in and I drop into town into the McDonald's, and out of nowhere, this woman walks up to me and just hands me a $20 bill. And maybe it's because how I looked, maybe I looked really rough or whatever. She didn't say anything. She just handed me this $20 bill and walked away. And I was just like in awe again. I'm like, I don't need this money, but like this will go towards a charitable cause. I just donated it. And there was no explanation to it. And so I continued. No, neither. I continued. And I'm just like, at this point, I have this unstoppable feeling that everything will be okay the rest of the day. And I apologize about what the heck this building is doing right now. And
it's like a little the guy doing like the fire drill testing is like a DJ on the side. He's like,
right?
We're gonna try to make beats out of it. Sorry, that was
he's having a good time down there, whatever the heck he's doing. I make it 160 miles and I stop at a gas station to get a snack, and it's like 10 p.m. at this point. And I go and I'm checking out of this gas station, and the guy looks at me and without really any like warrant or reason, he looks at me, he's like, you need to stop tonight. I don't know what you're doing, where you're going, where you're staying, but you shouldn't go further. Like, this town is your last stop before Buchanan, which is where I was trying to go. It's okay. Which was 60 miles away. And he just is like, you're gonna crash here tonight. We'll give you a place to stay. You're going no further. And I'm like, okay, that's fine with me. And so my 200
Yeah,
miles.
if you're gonna hint like that, man, take it.
Yeah, that's a sign from somewhere. And so that ended up being very significant, because the next day I woke up and I set off to complete the rest of the ride to Buchanan, and the cord to my derailleur snapped. So if you don't know the pieces of the bikes, what that does is that locks your gears into the lowest gear, and you can't climb in that gear, not through Appalachia. So I was stuck, and I got stuck in the middle of nowhere during the day. And if I had continued on the night prior, it would have been midnight, pitch black, and I would have been stuck in the middle of nowhere with next to nothing. And so again, this guy, for whatever reason, just recorrected my path, and I had to put my own stubbornness to the side, and he saved my ass somehow without even knowing that he was going to have that kind of impact. So do you want me to continue? Because there's one more saving of this in this story.
Yeah, man, keep it going. I'm just listening.
Then there's always a John, and if you anywhere in America, there's a John. John probably has a camper van and a nice wife, and he's extremely handy. So John pulls up, and he sees me in distress, and I'm like, John. I'm only seeing.
I hope John's listening.
I hope John's listening too. I only see an Ace Hardware and a Walmart. I need a new cord for my derailleur. Do you think either of them are going to have them? And he's like, son, there's no way. There's no way either of those places has that. But I have one in my garage. Get in and let's go fix it. And he takes me to his own personal bike garage at his home, where his wife is baking these beautiful fresh muffins and just feeding me these delicious foods while he teaches me how to fix my bike, and just sends me on my way. And that was a span of like 28, 29 hours, 30 hours maybe.
How are the muffins?
They were delicious, man. They're like,
of course,
they grew their own blueberries and whatever.
Dude, I was just about to ask if they're blueberry muffins. You should have just stopped the whole ride. Life's complete.
I know. I wanted to. I was so badly wanted to be like adopted by them and just like stay there for a while.
Yeah, right. Just like keep baking muffins and teach me how to fix shit.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. I was just gonna say I'll work for you.
Yeah. So there's some really interesting ideas. If that's like, if there's like a privilege there, right? You can try to grab on any metrics, right? You can do, I don't even know where you could go with that, but is that the privilege I have in life, which is to be able to take stupid risks and somehow have my ass saved almost by the bell in its fashion. And I have no idea.
There's like a chicken and the egg type of feeling I get about the feeling of being unstoppable. Again, it goes back to the sorry, Marty Hines just called. I wish I could just loop him right in. It goes back to like that manifestation feeling, right? Where I guess you said you had that feeling of being unstoppable, and that was given to you in that moment. Let's be real. But I know you well, Heath, and you always have that. And you know, you magnetize that to you. Like you really did. And maybe there is like a privileged aspect where the way that your life was set up, it was easier for you to naturally have that way about you than maybe other people in different scenarios. But you're still doing it, right? You're still kind of like earning that, if you will. Dude, that's how I just like, I feel. And it's like a dance that you're playing, right? You know, it's almost that's why I told Emma last night over dinner, I'm signing up for another ultra. It's going to be longer than anyone I've ever done, because I want to dance that line of like, how far can I push it and push my mind to stay in that because if your mind stays there, I think your body and your surroundings will shake out. So I don't know. I guess what I would say is the testing that, and what I mean by that, let me be more specific, testing the ability to uh remain so like grateful and open to receiving and optimistic. Like that's kind of what the journey I'm on in life right now. Like is like,
Yeah.
like why not try to do things, the things you like focus on, if they're negative, positive, that's what that's what you draw to you for sure,
Oh,
man.
I agree.
Um,
Going. Let's see where it goes. I enjoy. I enjoy
yeah,
that.
dude. And it's pretty cool because you never know what's good or bad for you. I'm sure when the gas station guy told you to quit, like your ego is a little hit, 160 miles, impressive, but you didn't hit your goal, right?
Yeah.
And then your shit. So in that moment, you might have been pissed, and then your shit snaps the next day, and you're like, "Oh, that was the best thing that happened to me on this whole trip." Like,
Most
and that's life, dude. Like, do you know how many times like it happens to me, and like people get angry about things, and then like the exact like opposite happens. Like, if you can't tell the future, like don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah. Again, we go in full circles with our conversations because again, you
Yeah,
can't tell the future, don't sweat it. It's what we're saying with death. It's what we're saying with life.
yeah, yeah,
Manifest by projecting what you want with a determined and disciplined mind. And
yeah.
the flexibility to understand that
Make that a quote, Heath
yeah,
Saffer.
you don't have the direct control over it. Like I can't manifest for me an avocado toast for tomorrow for breakfast and expect to just show up on my plate. I have to go and then take steps I believe will lead to that avocado toast. And if it's
Definitely action.
being a bagel with lox and cream cheese, it might not be that avocado toast, but like fuck it, it's still an
Yeah,
absolutely delicious breakfast that is
yeah.
on my plate. So
There's like in that book that I was telling you, that kind of the way of peace forward, that kind of guided me towards this title. um he's like, Dan's basically getting coached by a fictional character, Socrates, and first he's trying to train the mind, and then he's trying to train him to carry that mindset in ways of action. And when he kind of like graduates, if you will, from the mindset aspect, it's funny because he's meditating in a field, and Socrates comes up and kicks him in the back. He's like, "Hey, cheap sitting bull, you can't just sit there your whole life. Like, you got to do something." And I love it. I have no idea where this came from, but like obviously, like memories of us are just like flashing in my head. Do
yeah.
you remember when you came to visit South Carolina, end of my freshman year? You were like, you decided that you were gonna go there, and it was like, you touring it, and we drove back. Oh no, this was after
You
your
graduated.
freshman.
Are you talking about
No,
when we moved you out, or is this a different memory?
when I got moved out, and we strapped my mattress to the roof of your Jeep, and for 8 hours I just did a lat pull down hold. We had like this rope, and this thing was like jumping, dude, because of course we had like the roof off, and we're like, dude, for like 8 hours of just like pulling it down.
And then we
Oh man.
proceeded to explore DC that night until the sunrise.
Oh yeah, that was, dude. How about that like video game? We got to find the name of that video game we played.
I can ask my cousin. He'll probably know. Maybe not.
For those that don't know, it was
PS2 or something. PS3.
yeah. It was like the wee hours of the night. It was honestly probably like 9 or 10 a.m. Let's could just call it the morning.
Yeah, it was
And
more.
we were playing this, yeah, and we were playing this video game, and it was like this head with a cloak. There was like no, it like you when you start the game, it was no like start menu, it was no directions. And I just remember like you kind of like you could just move around and just move the guy around. And then like clearly it was like maybe it was like a sand hill. Like I don't really know. And you were doing it, and you were like, should I just keep going up this hill? And like the guy went from like flowing easily to like a lot of resistance. But you were like, let's just keep going. And like literally the screen is blank and this guy's basically like barely going into the wind, and you just held it like that for like 2 minutes, and then like you got to the top or something.
And then it opened up though. Didn't we beat it? I swear we beat it. Like we got to see it, the whole concluding scene where
Yeah.
he pushed
Something
against the
happened.
nut.
Maybe not beat it. We got to the next thing.
That was just me saying like we beat it. What would you even, how would you even describe that game?
Uh, Cloak man or lady, could be a lady.
True. PlayStation. This is gonna be something I dig into later because I'm genuinely
Amazing.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your journey right now with medicine. I know you got into medicine, wanting to create a pretty big impact, and as you've learned so much about the possibilities, your ideas, you're just learning about new options.
Yeah.
Is helping people with the end of life transition primary focus now, or
It's partial focus. There's no need to primarily focus on that. It's going to be psychiatric, family med, palliative care, like end of life is going to be the general direction I'm heading in hopes to help build out like America's rural infrastructure in that sense. Because I think that in seeing these places in America, you could probably agree, like it's pretty gorgeous out in these more rural, less developed areas. And I think that it could be huge for some people that are more not trapped, it's a little bit too dramatic, but like they've embedded themselves in urban America and don't really take much time to leave that. I think you can almost tie this to what you were saying earlier. Like urban America is also information heavy. You're constantly being bombarded with information and stimulus that I think it would be beneficial to find yourself in rural America for chunks of time. And I foresee the potential to practice psychiatric care out in these spaces, both providing it for the residents that live in rural America and act as a destination for people that want to leave their urban domicile for a little bit to receive whatever kind of treatment they want. And that treatment, in my mind, being a plethora of things, but the one I'm most excited about is the psychedelic medicine and all the fun advancements going on there. So I envision this direction going in to rural practice, where we build out clinics in different spaces. You can think like your Arizona deserts, your PA wilds, your mountains in Montana, like these little areas.
It almost sounds, sorry to cut you off, it almost sounds like there's like a retreat wellness aspect to it, backed by like a doctor, right? Like
which there's like a million of those already like functioning, but it's still, there's also over 300 million people in America, so it's really just accessible to those with the most resources right now. So if we keep scaling it.
During this conversation, somebody launched a fitness app, someone launched a clothing line. You just got to do it better. You don't need to.
You better.
And you just,
it's also focused on accessibility, right? How much does it cost to operate these things? I would like it to be on the cheaper side, so a little bit more minimalistic. So it doesn't need to have like the most fancy, amazing spa. But if you build like a rickety sauna, that still gets the job.
Rickety sauna.
Yeah.
The sauna and an ice bath. That's all you need.
Saying, you build a little clinic on a river in Montana. There's your ice bath, and you have this sauna right there.
We've talked about this. We will partner on ventures at some point in our life, because I just feel strongly about connecting the dots, and it's happening between like medicine and like lifestyle, right? People like to be able to prescribe somebody meditation, like a medicine, like that would be cool.
You want to hear
guide them on
a cool story of medicine and lifestyle though? That's actually going on. So there's a hospital system called Geisinger. That's like upstate PA, New York-esque type influence. And they purchased, not to be too technical, but there's payers and there's payees. Think insurance companies and then the actual like doctor.
Yeah.
So Geisinger is a system of healthcare providers and administrators. they purchased an insurance company, i.e. the payers, so that they call it a vertical structure. They own the insurance company and the distribution of care. And because they do that, it allows them to make decisions on what qualifies for payment based on like what is actually going to be effective for their patients or their clients. And so they were able to establish a prescription grocery like protocol or system that allows them to get pre-diabetic patients or something like that, prescribe them groceries. So through their health insurance, they're given health foods included in what they're already paying. So it's free, quote unquote, because they're paying for health insurance already. They can give them cooking equipment and all that jazz so that they can go to their doctor, get all of these health foods prescribed to them and given to them. They can then take it home and cook it and have access to it lumped into their healthcare. So they're not just being prescribed medications, but they're avoiding the progression of pre-diabetes into a diabetic state through diet and lifestyle. And it's being paid for through their health insurance, as it should be, right? It makes
as it should be. That's so amazing. You know, my dad had type 2 diabetes and they gave him medicine and he didn't take the medicine and he just cut out carbs and added a 60-minute walk 5 days a week. It was gone and been gone for 6-7 years.
Bada bing, bada boom, baby. That's awesome.
I said bada bing, bada boom to someone today and they're like, damn, the Italians are getting to you.
Do they say that out there? I feel like that's an American.
I don't know, but like,
bada bing, bada boom.
It sounds like beep de bop. Like, I could just see it. But that's dude, that's so cool. And I just love that. I love that example. I mean, it's easy to act on. Yeah. It's easy to act on. It's definitely gonna make quite a big impact. And I don't know, there's education is a great way to cause people to change, and there's just so much information out there about certain things we do that are healthy and unhealthy, and like I see it going that way. And I love that I love the way that you're like dedicating the time. I even love the way that what you're doing is just like opening doors, because you even said like there's no need to primarily focus on this. Like that's just one area that I'm able to focus on. And like I mentioned, I kind of always like to get into it by just like doing. Actually, dude, something I want to tell you was November 10th. I rented like a 12-bedroom home in northern Idaho, and I'm putting on a wellness retreat. And it's something that I've wanted to do forever, because it combines community. It's just gonna be fun, right? There's gonna be physical challenges, ice swims and trail runs. There's gonna be like breath work and like meditation. I don't think there's anything extremely revolutionary about like what we're doing, except we're all going to be teaching the modules from like experience, I guess, which is probably how most do it. But and then the other thing is, right, it's like a lot of these things we just need the space for it, like just like the space and time for us to have this conversation. Like, Heath, I know your intentions have been like, your intention would be to talk to me as much as humanly possible, and me the same for you. But like, we just haven't talked since like really the wedding when we saw each other, because it was summertime. You're kite surfing and mountain biking. I've been traveling and running, like, and dude, that's how it should be. But that's what I'm really hoping for this is, of course, it'll teach people new things, but also give people the space. And like our big thing is like taking like people modalities that we practice for a while and like really helping them like integrate it, right? Because like, I don't know, like one of the modules would be Wim Hof method. I'm not Wim Hof, but I've been doing it every morning for 4 years, and there's like, I have like a way that I integrate in my life, in a very specific way I do it for what I'm looking for, and hopefully that resonates with others.
Yeah, I think that sounds awesome, man. And congratulations, it's a really awesome venture. I don't know if you look for any kind of like grant funding from the government, so you can almost give out scholarship. So because something like that would be amazing for people that don't even know that it exists. And like you said, you're creating the space for it to happen. But how also amazing would it be if you can like have a certain amount of slots for people that are just interested in it and want to pay for it, but also X amount of slots for individuals that don't even know it exists and might not be able to afford it, but would greatly benefit from it. And it would be like subsidized by some initiative for improving rural health or improving the health of a inner city youth or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
and I love that you talk about rural, because I think a lot of people just go inner city youth.
Yeah, both are struggling.
And it's interesting because so we thought about that slightly, and the way we wanted to solve that was pretty damn low cost. I mean, and then no like expenses, like, you know, picking people up from the airport, like all food, you know, all that stuff, and making it, we 25% of, like, we looked at what most retreats cost, and we're coming at 25% of the cost, which is like, I mean, also
Impressive.
I mean, but it's awesome, but it's still like expensive, right? You know, I mean, and either way, it's like we're not covering flights out there. A lot of people can't afford flights. That would be cool to have even one or two, you know, sponsors, you know, scholarships.
Yeah,
That'd be really fun.
yeah, man. And it's an excellent cause. So there's always someone out there looking to get involved with something like that.
I'm writing it on my hand where the most important notes go. Any new tattoos?
Nothing I can show right now. One on my torso, but there's, you know, no need to expose the body too much on camera.
Flash me real quick. Oh,
Yeah,
man.
no, it's definitely continuing that venture. It's got a lot more skin to cover, you know.
Yeah, man. And I like, you know, I know part of it is kind of like places you've been or story, you know, everything to have a story. So I think that's cool.
That's the idea. At the end of the day, if neurodegeneration is going to be the issue our generation most likely has to solve and also deal with, then I figured it will be nice to have like a memory walk down my body of just images that stimulate memories. So I'm banking on that being one of my saving points from like a dementia or an Alzheimer's.
Amazing. That's one of the things I like about the podcast, and blogging. And I haven't been blogging as much as I'd like to. But I mean, man, like some of the thoughts that I had like on the run today, right? Like they will escape you, and the essence will be there, but and you know, there's no right or wrong. So I don't want to say I'm upset with it, because maybe I could have not done this podcast and spent an hour blogging, but then I wouldn't have done this podcast, right? There's, you know, yeah. Oh, for sure. No, the podcast and the blog for sure.
Yeah.
But what I was saying is like, you know, it's like, that's just like such a good way to like jot things down. There's something about writing versus speaking that I feel like when you're writing versus speaking or thinking, you complete your thoughts more.
Yeah.
You know,
I can see that.
It's really easy I feel like for me to say like, oh, like, you know what I mean? Like when I don't complete a thought and you're like, yeah. And like, we really don't know what each other means, then it's fine. We just move to the next topic. But like, if you're like writing like an article, you can't just be like I had a great run, like, you know, and I was like deep, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Be a little bit more thorough with your descriptions. And yeah, tie it off with a nice little bow.
For sure. Heath, I want to ask you kind of as like a wrap up question here. What's something that you're stoked about over the next few months, maybe throughout now and the end of the year? More so like a goal that you're looking to accomplish, something that's, you know, new.
It's not necessarily, maybe it's new for me, but not new for most people. But for me, it's just like getting some good quality family time in. And I've been away from the East Coast for like the last 10 years or so. And in the last year, I was able to reconnect with like a lot of cousins, aunts, uncles, parents, siblings, and realizing that like that amount of time I spent away from them was significant, and they did a lot of growing while I was not around, and I wanted to get to know them as people and as friends, and rekindle those relationships. So that's kind of
Yeah.
what I'm excited for. I've been doing a lot of things with my family and just getting to see them for the human beings that they are, and they're absolutely beautiful people, and I'm so thankful to have them. I want to keep on stoking that aspect of my life, to
Yeah.
to strengthen the roots a little bit more as I probably venture, because next 3 years I'll be in Philly doing this, and then it's going to open up again, and I want to be able to leave Philly with very strong familial roots. So
Yeah.
probably that.
I appreciate you like hearing that, and it resonates with me. I haven't lived home since I was 17.
Yeah.
Part of the reason that I started my own company was to be able to live where I wanted, when I wanted. And I've spent some time at home, but I think I could spend some more. And I would like to. Um, and like you said, people definitely have grown. So that's a good goal. I'll check in with you on that one.
Yeah. Appreciate it, dude. What about you? What's your
Um,
answer? 'Cause I feel like I got to answer all these questions that haven't gotten to answer
yeah,
so
man.
many questions.
Um,
You're out in Italy.
I'm out in Italy. So throughout now and the end of the year, I want to really choose something to focus on, from a life inner study standpoint. What I mean by that is, I have a podcast on happiness. I have a blog that's like an external version of my journal. I have a networking group about building community, a lot of business ties there and self-growth. I'm trying to start to put a little more content out, and I'm definitely about to double down on these retreats. These things I just like in person. I want to pick some, and I'm not studying anything. I would say the other big thing in my life is ultra running, and just like fitness and wellness in general, but that's not specific. I want to pick some things to like really focus on. I guess, like, let's take ultra running for example. Even that, like, I like to be the ultra runner that also like lifts a lot of weights. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? And like, that's cool and all, but like maybe it would be cooler to like look back in like 3 years and be like, dude, I gave everything I have to ultra running. And now like, and I have deeper connection to life because of it, versus like I dabbled in, these couple things. And so it's a long-winded way of basically saying, like, I just want to find something to really focus on. Like I was talking about, maybe education, and getting more into like the sciences, and kind of connect that to what I'm doing every day.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That sounds beautiful. If you think that, I think the only thing I would say to the education piece is, if you think that the credential you're going for will unlock something for you to do, then 100% go for it. If you're just curious about the information, the most beautiful thing about the internet age is that this information that you might be curious about is available to you like right now, without you having to like pay an institution any money for it. So like the reason I do an MD is because it is the credentialing of it that allows you to have a little bit of protection from a legal perspective. Otherwise you could go and learn everything I've learned in the last year on your own time with a higher level of freedom than I have in life right now. That's
Google.
that's my only 2 cents. Google, and dude, just the third-party resources available that we use anyways. Like, information is there. I can't wait for school to be free, because you can't fight the freedom of information and how accessible it is.
Yeah.
You have to compete with that somehow.
Integration though, and environment, right? I think like for example, like for marketing, like I tell all my clients, like, if you have like a paywall, like where people need to pay and then they access information, give all that information for free.
Yeah.
Every client says like, but why? Like, that's what they're charging for. I'm like, because like your app or your program helps them like integrate it, like do it right. Like the Wim Hof, it's crazy. The Wim Hof like app, I just use that because that was on top of my mind, has the breathing method right there. But then when you pay, there's these customizations that like really help you, you like do it, track it be customized to you and you customize, you know what I mean? Just like, and
That's
dude,
really
like,
good advice.
you know what I'm saying? Like,
You
with the,
just
with
made
like the
neurons connect to my brain.
boing.
The
Well, and then the environment, right?
community maybe they provide.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like that's kind of what I was getting at with the wellness retreat. Like there's nothing that's new to world. That's what I was trying to get at before. Nothing there is going to be new to world, but it's going to be a hell of an environment. It's going to be an application process where we get on the phone with everyone before they get in. It's not just like money doesn't get you in, right?
Yeah,
Like we're going to make sure you're there to do some inner work and treat people respectfully. And yeah, I think, it's cool in that way.
that's freaking awesome,
Heath,
man.
man,
That's freaking awesome.
I love you, dude, and I can't wait to see you next. Don't know when that'll be, but I'm sure it
We'll
won't
figure
be
it
the
out.
phone.
We'll figure it out. I love you too, Johnny boy. It was thank you for
Dude.
having me on this. It was really awesome. It was fun to chat.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you for making the time. I know you're away from tech as much as possible.
Now I'm back in it now. We're back up and running. Gotta be back, integrating it back into life. So anytime,
Yeah,
brother, anytime.
cool, man. I appreciate it and keep grinding, dude.
Yeah, likewise, dude. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you for watching today's episode. If you got something out of this, it would mean so much if you could just take a second and give us a rating on whatever platform you're watching it on. And it would mean so much to the world if you could just find one person that you think this message resonates with and you can share that with them. Thank you so much for your support. Looking forward to share the next episode with you.